This season has been about Paolo Banchero one way or another. Is he ready to make a playoff statement today on Locked On Magic?
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is April 10th, 2026. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. And on today's episode of Locked On Magic, what Paolo Banchero has been doing and how he's been building and growing to perhaps make a huge playoff statement. We'll talk a little bit about where Paolo is at in the latest round of frustrating things that people have to say about Paolo Banchero. Plus, we'll talk about how Paolo and Franz are playing together in the short time that they've been back on the floor together. And we will talk about the narrow path for 5th and 6th in the Eastern Conference as we enter the final 2 games of the NBA season, final 2 game days of the NBA season. But before we do any of that, we want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right we upload. We truly appreciate you for helping make Locked On Magic such a great and growing community. We want to thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. It's your team every day. This season, and we're going to do a bigger study and a bigger dive on it in the offseason, so stay tuned on this. But this season has evolved into something of an indictment or a giant argument about Paolo Banchero. Fair or unfair, like real or not, everyone expected Paolo Banchero to take a pretty sizable leap. After all, the Magic gave him not only just a max contract, they gave him a Rose Rule max contract. And you don't give that unless you're intending to pay that. Certainly Paolo believes he is that level of player. And not only is Paolo not going to get the Rose Rule, so he's not going to get the 30%. Not only is that going to be the case, but it also appears that he's nowhere near that. Whether because of injuries or because of whatever reason, Paolo was not anywhere near an all-star this year. He was like 2 or 3 guys down the list, but he wasn't an all-star this year. And he has had a season that has warranted criticism, although maybe not to the degree that it has been thrown at. Overall, Paolo's averaging 22.3 points per game. He's shooting a career best 46.2% from floor. He's 31.2% from 3, which isn't fantastic. 77.7% from the foul line. Still getting the line 8.2 free throw attempts per game. He's got a career high 8.4 rebounds per game and 5.1 assists per game. His 3 turnovers per game are certainly out to you, but this is the story of Paolo Banchero. While there is a lot of criticism and a lot of fair criticism, his numbers are essentially the same as his numbers were when he was an all-star in 2024. The Magic's record will end up being essentially the same as it was when the Magic made the playoffs in 2024. Obviously, their place in the standings is not the same. Their expectations are not the same. So it is a little difficult and it is a little hard to get a clear and clean sense of what to make of Paolo's season. And again, we're going to do a deeper dive on this in the offseason because it deserves that deeper of a dive. It deserves examination. The more immediate question, though, is whether Paolo is ready to show up for the playoffs. Whether he is ready to do what he has done in his last 2 playoff series, where he averaged 27 in the 7-game series against the Cleveland Cavaliers, where he averaged 29.4 points per game against the Boston Celtics and their vaunted defense. And sure, the efficiency wasn't fantastic in either of those series. He had a 48.4 effective field goal percentage last year against Celtics. Throughout both series, he elevated his scoring and elevated his play. And among many other things in each of those contests and each of those competitions, it gave the Magic a chance. And so let's be clear about another thing or another issue that we're going to run into. The Magic don't stand a chance against the Celtics, against the Knicks, against the Cavs, who think it's still technically placed, against the Pistons, if Paolo does not step up his game. The Magic do not stand a chance even to get out of the play-in tournament. I know Paolo didn't have a great game against the Hawks last year in the play-in tournament. Cole Anthony was the hero in that game. But Paolo made some big plays down the stretch. Fair or not, and I think it's fair to say it's not fair. Fair or not, all eyes are always on Paolo Banchero. All eyes are always on his ability to step his game up. I've said this a million times throughout the season. The Magic get their energy from Paolo. Whether reports of his frustrations with Jamal Mosley are true or not, whether there are issues there, there's definitely been a downturn in his intensity. There's been a downturn in the way that he's played at times. And now that the Magic are fully healthy, now that the Magic seem to have something to play for, they have a carrot to go after in our last segment today. Paolo does seem to be waking back up after two horrendous games and critical games against the Hawks and the Raptors last week. During this 4-game win streak, Paolo's scoring isn't quite where we want it. 10 points against the Mavericks. He looked a little disinterested in that game, but still had 7 rebounds, 5 assists. He had 23 points against the Pelicans. 23 points, 16 rebounds, 6 assists. Looked a lot more engaged. 31 against the Pistons on Monday. And then 28 and 6 on 8 for 11 shooting, with 6 of those field goal attempts and 6 of those makes coming within the restricted area. During this 4-game win streak, Paolo's averaging 21 points per game, 9 rebounds per game, 5 assists per game. 21, 9, 5 is pretty solid numbers, while shooting 54.9% from the floor, 42.9% from 3. And the Magic are plus 6.3 points per game, plus 25 overall in the course of those 4 games, plus 23 against the Pistons, plus 12 against the Timberwolves. Small sample size theater, so let's not jump to conclusions here. But Paolo is stepping his game up in multiple ways. He does look a little bit more energized and more engaged. Having those players back makes things easier for him. Honestly, he said in the locker room, the difference between now and last week is simply Franz Wagner and Anthony Black having more guys who can attack. And Paolo isn't going to beat the accusations in the next week or the next 2 weeks or the next 3 weeks, however long we have left with this team. This is a humongous summer for Paolo Banchero. This season, fair or not, has been, we're going to talk more about this. I have takes. We're going to get to them in the offseason. I want to focus on the here and now, but this season does feel a bit like an indictment of Paolo Banchero. Again, that's probably too harsh. That's not fair. But essentially, the Magic were 26 and 25 in the 51 games that Franz Wagner played only 4 games in. This team Paolo Banchero should be, and your record, you should be a 45, 46, 47 win team with just Paolo Banchero. And I guess because he missed 51 games, they kind of will be. But this offseason is certainly a challenge for him. But the first challenge is going to be this postseason. The first challenge is going to be these playoffs. And if Paolo can continue to regain his form, because really after the All-Star break, just like last year at the All-Star break, maybe not to that degree, after the All-Star break, Paolo's averaging 23.9 points per game, 8.3 rebounds per game, and 5.5 assists per game. He has a 58.5% true shooting percentage, which is about what he had last year after the All-Star break. He's shooting 47.3% from the floor. He's not a great three-point shooter. The Magic's still a little underwater with him on the floor. I'm not considering to say he's been perfect, but he's found a groove. And as long as he's engaged and aggressive, he can get things done for this Magic team. Like Paolo said, though, the biggest difference is having the Magic's players back. And so obviously one of the big questions we want to preview heading into next season is how do Paolo and Franz play together? The small sample sizes of the last 4 games, but with Paolo and Franz together at least, coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by friends over at BetterHelp. Financial stress is something a lot of people are carrying right now. It's not just about numbers. It can affect your sleep, your relationships, and your overall mental health in ways that build up over time. And the reality is struggling with money means you failed. Sometimes it just means you haven't had the right kind of support. It's that time of year where we're all thinking about our finances, tax days in a week. And regardless of what your financial situation is, regardless, we're all dealing with stress. It doesn't have to be financial stress. It could be any stress. We all put pressure on ourselves to be the best we can be, no matter what the scenario is. And so how do we deal with these feelings? How do we give ourselves some slack? That's what therapy really helps you do. Therapy isn't about financial advice. It isn't even about advice. It's about working through stress, anxiety, and the emotions that come with it and finding a way to deal with them appropriately. With more than 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served, BetterHelp makes it easier to get matched and start focusing on what you need. When life feels overwhelming, therapy can help. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is also brought to you by friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are right around the corner, where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. Here's what I like about it. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, that extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. It just makes the whole playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. We're looking at, obviously, a big, big night in basketball on Friday. Everybody's got 2 game days left. Everyone has 2 games left. So not only will we be watching the Magic play the Chicago Bulls here in Chicago, we will be watching a lot of other games around the NBA, like the Hawks hosting the Cavs. The Hawks 7-point favorites in that one. The Sixers 14.5-point favorites over the Indiana Pacers. The Knicks 6-point favorites over the Toronto Raptors. And the Orlando Magic, the most important game, of course, the Magic winning their game, 15-point favorites over the Chicago Bulls. It's the wacky, zany end of the NBA season, which Matt Moore of Locked On Nuggets and the Action Network will tell you, don't bet on the last 2 weeks of the season. They are crazy. But if you're going to, there's the information for you. Head to FanDuel.com if you want to get started or be ready for the playoffs. Have your account ready to go so that when the play-in tournament starts on Tuesday, you will be ready for those big games. FanDuel, play your game. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, or if you're first listen today, whenever you get to us, we want to thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. If you want to take your Locked On fandom to the next level, check out our Everydayer Club. You can get this show ad-free with the Everydayer Club, with members-only Discord access. If you want to get in now, you can talk with other NBA fans as well as other Magic fans in our growing Locked On Magic Discord community. I provide my 3 thoughts after every quarter, the rest of the season. It could be the next 2 weeks, could be the next 2 months. Who knows? Anything could happen. Check it out today at lockedonmagic.supercast.com. That's lockedonmagic.supercast.com. A season like this does lead to big questions. Like there are a lot of season recaps going on. I think it was the Hoop Collective called the Magic the most disappointing team in the league, and that's fair to say. With the payroll the Magic are playing, with the expense the Magic made, the fact that we are back at the 7 seed, gained a few wins for sure, but didn't gain any seeding in this Eastern Conference that appeared to be a little bit weaker, a little bit down with a couple teams missing some key players. It's disappointing. And obviously, there will be big questions that will be asked, and we feel very certain that we will see at least one major change to the way this team operates. So we're clearly still clearly still have things that are going to happen. But a season like this also makes you think about some bigger questions, and we're going to get to a lot of them in the offseason. Like, again, like barring a conference finals run or a finals run or anything deep like that, I do think we will be asking some very big questions. Like it's hard to make the offseason because there's just a lot of big questions to ask, and everyone's eager to get to asking them and figuring them out and thinking about them. The question I want to ask today is, though, is there a problem with the Magic's central build? Now, I would argue that it's too early to ask this question. If anything, the Magic need to see how this turns out. Like, these guys have played for one coach. We know that there's something here that works. So I do think they have earned a second coach. So I don't anticipate major moves. Like major moves to the starting lineup. Like the starting lineup works. It's still like among lineups that have played at least 150 minutes, it's still like the 13th best lineup in the league, which again, like would we like to be better? Sure. But there's something here that works. And I think ultimately one of the bigger questions is, does Paolo and Franz work? That is a question that's going on around the league. And the Magic aren't going to answer that question. That is like the last question that gets asked. Like, we'll ask it, we'll think about it, and we're going to think about it right now. But that is not the question. Because if you look at lineup data, Paolo and Franz work. Just looking at two-man lineup data in 400 minutes together, 22 games. The Magic have a plus 3.1 net rating with Paolo and Franz on the floor together. A 113.6 offensive rating and a 110.5 defensive rating. Among player combos and player pairs for the Magic this season, only Jalen Suggs and Jace Richardson are better paired with Paolo. Now, again, relatively small sample. We're going to deal with some smaller samples here in a minute. But and a lot of that's probably the main starting lineup. Like the Magic's main starting lineup is really good. Like plus 9 net rating, plus 10 net rating. That starting lineup is really, really good. Among Wagner's most used lineups, or among Wagner's best net rating lineups, Paolo's obviously a little further down. That plus 3.9, that plus 3.9, 3.8, where'd it go? That plus 3.1 is below De Silva, below Desmond Bane, below Jalen Suggs. Jalen Suggs is a general booster for everybody. Franz is in some good lineups. Franz works with a lot of different lineups. But if you look at just the last 5 games, if you look at just with Franz Wagner back in the lineup, small sample, so don't read a whole bunch into this. But if Paolo's right that the biggest difference is just having their guys back and having their best players back, these last 5 games and really the rest of the season is going to be like a proof of concept. Again, like we're dealing with small samples. But over the last 5 games, the Franz-Paolo pairing has been a plus 3.4. Paolo and Dell have been plus 11.4. Paolo and Suggs have been plus 11.7. Paolo and Dez have been plus 13.3. So it seems like a Paolo-Franz pairing is going to be about 3 points per 100 possessions better than their opponent with really good defense and pretty mediocre offense. So maybe that's a case to say, like, okay, let's go get a better offensive player. Let's go get a better offensive coach. Let's configure our offensive system. Again, small samples on both counts. We have years of data, too, that tell us that, okay, there's something there. Even last season, let's just look at last season, for instance. last season, if I can get my data to pull up here. Last season, Paolo and Franz Wagner lineups. If my data will pull up, sorry, I got to wait for data to load here. Paolo and Franz Wagner lineups were plus 3.8. So again, you see a little consistency there. 2024, and we're going to let my data page load as well. And that's just to see. I'm curious now. I'm actually studying this too now. In 2024, Paolo and Franz lineups were plus 1.7. So they've settled at about plus 3, plus 4 points per 100 sessions. Unlocking this duo is still the big key for the Magic. And until they win at a high level, there's going to be questions about whether this is a good fit. And yeah, like down the road, if the Magic still struggle to like get to that next level, this is going to be the debate. And this is not to pit them against each other. I think they can work together. I think they are capable. I think the Magic need new offensive structure, like all that stuff. You change a lot of stuff before you change Paolo and Franz. But this is a duo that has to work. The Magic have to find a way to make them work both individually, which Franz certainly does. Paolo can struggle with. They got to find a way to make them work individually as well as together. But certainly there is something to it because last 4 games, obviously the Magic are winning. Paolo's playing better. The team is playing better. That group is playing together. They're energized more. They have the ability to put pressure and keep pressure on opponents, on defenses. Things are shaping up for the Orlando Magic. It was a big night for the Orlando Magic scoreboard watching on Thursday. The result the Magic needed and the one they didn't, the path to 6th, coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. The playoff push is heating up, and tournament hoops are here. The NBA playoffs right around the corner, and there's no better way to get in on the high-flying action than PrizePicks, America's #1 sports picks app. Every bucket, every assist, every big moment means more when you're building lineups on PrizePicks. PrizePicks makes it simple to play. It's daily fantasy built around player projections, so you can stay locked into every game. Here's what I like about it. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, which makes it quick and easy to jump in. You can mix different sports in the same lineup, basketball, baseball, hockey. There's so much going on. And features like early payouts lets you lock and win if your player gets off to a strong start. So in case you think they're going to tail off, you can get out early. It's a fun way to stay engaged, especially during the most important stretch of the season. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, play your game. It was a big Thursday night of scoreboard watching because we are officially down to 2 more game days in the NBA regular season. Everybody's playing Friday. Everybody's playing Sunday. So everyone's down to 2 games. No more games at hand. No more complicated like, well, if this happens. Everything is pretty straightforward. And so we know what the Magic have to do. Like, none of what I'm about to talk about matters, except for Philadelphia, if the Magic don't win their last 2 games. So the Magic have to take care of their business first. And if the Magic do that, they will give themselves a really, really good opportunity to stay 7th, to have that home playoff game, that home play-in game. And really, honestly, 7th is so important for the Orlando Magic. Having 2 home play-in games, potentially, to get in, you want that. You don't want to have to go on the road for both. The Magic can't be 10th, so that doesn't matter. They get at least one. You don't have to go on the road for an elimination game. You don't have to play 2 single elimination games. You want those games in your building. The Kia Center is always rocking for postseason games. Their energy will not let the Magic have a letdown. Like, they may still lose, but they won't get run out of the building if the energy is right. We saw that during the NBA Cup against Miami, and the Magic went down 15 in that game. The Magic need those home games. So winning both these games just to get 7th is vital. And so let's start with that result. The Houston Rockets opened up as much as a 26-point lead and held on, with the deficit getting to as low as, I believe, 5, in a 113-102 win over the Philadelphia 76ers. This was a huge turning point game for the Magic because in Philadelphia, not even, but equally shaky teams at times. And this was the last playoff team, or last postseason team, I should say, that Philadelphia is going to play. Philadelphia is heading to Indianapolis as I'm recording this. They play the Indiana Pacers on Friday, and then they will finish the season against the Milwaukee Bucks on Sunday. Those should both be wins. If the Sixers win both games and the Magic go 1-1, the Sixers pass the Magic. They win the season series. They won the season series, so they win that tiebreaker. And so the Magic would then have to travel to Philadelphia or potentially stay home to face the Miami Heat in the 9-10 play-in game. That's the scenario. That's the situation. Charlotte does not play until Friday. They play Detroit on Friday, and then they play at New York on Sunday, in a game that New York might still need. New York beat Boston. We'll get to that result here in a minute. New York beat Boston, so they're still in the hunt for third. They're 2 games back of third, and they own the tiebreaker. So they will need Boston to lose both of their games. So that's to New Orleans on Friday and to the Magic on Sunday. And then they would need to win both of their games. I don't know who they play tomorrow. They actually play someone important. They play Toronto tomorrow. We'll get to that. They play Toronto tomorrow, Friday. And then they play the Hornets, like I said, on Sunday. So New York still fighting for something. I think they're a game up on Cleveland for fourth. Cleveland plays Atlanta. They're going to sit guys. Cleveland's sitting guys against Atlanta, and Atlanta actually matters to us too now. So we'll get to that in a minute. So Orlando controls their own destiny for the 7th seed. And so again, winning both games is vital for that. I would anticipate Philadelphia wins their last 2 games as well. So even with Joel Embiid out with the appendicitis, and Philadelphia looks ripe for the picking in the play-in tournament, we'll see what they look like against Indiana. Indiana beat Brooklyn on the road, 123-94. They still lead them by a game in the lottery standings, but we'll see what Indiana does in their last game and their game on Friday. The other result that was big was Toronto. The Toronto Raptors also built up as much as a 26-point lead and beat the Miami Heat 128-114, virtually locking the Heat with 2 games remaining into the 10 seed. The Heat are 2 games back of Charlotte and Philadelphia right now. They lost the tiebreaker to Charlotte. I believe they won the tiebreaker to Philadelphia, but essentially Miami's locked into 10. It takes Charlotte losing both games, Miami winning both games. Miami is at Washington, I believe, on Friday, and then they're home versus the Hawks on Sunday. So the Raptors win. It doesn't close the door to the 6th seed, but it makes it really, really hard. The Raptors and Hawks, their magic number to avoid the play-in tournament is 1. So if the Hawks beat the Cavs at home on Friday or beat the Heat in Miami on Sunday, the Hawks guaranteed 5 or 6. If Toronto beats New York at New York on Friday or beats the Nets at home on Sunday, the Raptors are guaranteed to avoid the play-in. This was a big game because it felt like the Magic needed 1 and 2, and we were expecting Toronto to beat Brooklyn, obviously. If we're going to expect the Magic to beat the Bulls, we got to expect Toronto to beat Brooklyn. The Magic needed a Heat win to open up that path into the play-in tournament, or out of the play-in tournament. Again, anything could happen, but that road to 6th is very, very narrow. Just like that road to 5th is even narrower because it requires both teams to lose both games and the Magic to win both of their games. Like I mentioned, Charlotte is at New York on Friday, versus Detroit on Friday, at New York on Sunday. Charlotte is a game back too. So again, Magic go 1-1, Charlotte goes 2-0. Charlotte wins that tiebreaker. Orlando's in the 9-10 game. It's that simple. And so the path up is narrow. The path down is treacherous. So the Magic are like walking on a cliff. There's enough room to walk. They can maybe get past somebody if they get real skinny, but they're also walking on the cliff too. And so we'll all be scoreboard watching tomorrow. We'll all be scoreboard watching Friday. The Magic's game tips off at 8 Eastern here in Chicago. Pistons Hornets is at 7. Heat Wizards is at 7. Cavs Hawks is at 7. Sixers Pacers is at 7:30. All those games will start before the Magic tip off. They should be done before the Magic are finished. Knicks also at 7:30, I should say. And again, you look at the favorites. According to we did that on the FanDuel read. But again, really, the Knicks are favored against the Raptors. The Hawks are favored over the Cavs. The Heat are obviously favored over the Wizards, although the Heat are rough. The Hornets are actually favored over the Pistons at home. The pressure's on the Magic, 15-point favorites over Chicago on FanDuel, to get this done. And so we could talk and we'll go through some of these. We'll go through some of the standing scenarios after tomorrow's game as well, after Friday's game as well. At the end of the day, the Magic just need to win. And that's always been the thing. And we'll look back at the end of the season and lament, well, you shouldn't have blown a 20-point lead to the Raptors in the game in Toronto in December. Shouldn't have lost by 52 to them either. Should have inbounded the ball against Lakers. We're going to lament all those losses and all those miscues and everything else at the end of the season. Right now, all Orlando can do is control their destiny. And the way they control their destiny and give themselves again, all the Magic have to do is win these last 2 games. If the Magic win these last 2 games, and again, Boston clinches the 2 seed, they cannot move up or down with a win against New Orleans on Friday in Boston. If the Celtics take care of that business, then the Celtics have no reason to play anyone against the Magic. And honestly, like, if you go listen to our friend John Corrales on Locked On Celtics, I saw him say this on Twitter, so I'm sure he'll say this during the show. It sure felt like during that game on Thursday against the Knicks that the Celtics were holding things close to the vest. So if the Celtics think that they're going to play the Magic in the playoffs, I wouldn't expect them to show anything. No Brown, no Tatum, like none of their key players play. Again, that's opportunity. We'll see. We'll see what that looks like. We'll see what happens when we get to Boston, but the Magic have to win. At the end of the day, all of this stuff doesn't matter. It just comes down to, are the Magic going to win these games and put themselves in the best position possible to climb the standings if that opportunity arises? That's all they can do. They have to hope these teams trip up. But hope isn't a strategy. If you take care of your business, you're there to take advantage of those teams slipping up. And that's the task ahead against Chicago. Take care of your business, get it done, and then we'll see where the chips fall. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast at Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of my still-known podcasts to your podcast-enabled device. You can check us out on YouTube as well. Just search for Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub, or check out our Everydayer Club at lockedonmagic.supercast.com to get access to the ad-free audio feed of this show, as well as our Locked On Discord server. As always, thank you for your support. If you're watching on video, we're going to send you the first ever 24/7 National NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen NBA game night on Locked On NBA. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We'll be back tomorrow from the United Center, somewhere in the United Center, to chat about the Magic's game against the Chicago Bulls and where the Magic stand heading into the final day of the season. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.